Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in today to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Bryan. Glad you can join me today. Hope everyone's doing well. Happy Monday. Hopefully, everyone's recovering nicely from this past holiday weekend we just had. And you know what? This past weekend was a little glimpse of what life is going to be like when the pandemic is all said and done. Nice to be getting back to normal, but like I mentioned before, it's the GSMC Football Podcast, so you know what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk all about football, NFL football, and college football. So if you love the leather, if you love to get into a three-point stance and get your hands dirty, you've come to the right place. Today, we're going to be talking about everything football regarding NFL and college football. We're going to be talking about the craziness that is the NFL free agency period. We're going to be talking about the big names, moving cities, the big trades that went down, and we're going to be talking about the teams that are going for it now. We're also going to be talking about the 2021 upcoming NFL draft. Draft is about 3 weeks away. We got the best players in college football testing their skills and seeing how they can prove to these franchises to show them, I'm the best player you can have. You know, the NFL draft is kind of like a job hunt for ordinary people. We'll be talking about that more, too. And we're also going to be talking about the upcoming college football season. And stick around. I'll be giving you my reasons why the college football landmark will be changed drastically within the next couple of years regarding the college football playoff. So, stick around. I'm Bryan. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. Glad you can be with me. Glad you can be with us. Let's get right into it, shall we? NFL free agency. It's been crazy. A lot of big names changing teams. A lot of balance of power in the NFL has shifted. There has been a lot of moves that happened in free agency, whether it's teams re-signing their guys, teams trading other critical pieces to get better. Now, a lot of teams in the NFL, they got better. A lot of teams got worse. When you're a player in the NFL, I think of free agency kind of like a job hunt. We've all been there. We've all been on the job hunt. You remember when you're getting your first job and you're getting out of school and you want to show what you brought to companies and show your skills and education? It's kind of like that. Now, the job hunt can be crazy. It can be a humble experience as well. It's scary to put yourself out on the market and say, hey, this is what I can bring to your company. What do you think? And it's scary to hear that feedback because it can be good at sometimes. It can be great when people say, yeah, you're great for a company. But then it can also be a little humbling when you say, you know what, you don't really have the skills and you don't really have the expertise we're looking for. So we're going to pass on you. But that's what it's like for NFL players in free agency. Teams will tell you what they really think of your ability. If they think that you can produce for them, they're going to pay you the big money. They're going to give you that multi-year contract worth millions of dollars. But if they don't think that you can produce for them on the field, and they don't think you can put a winning product on the field for them, they're not going to give you anything. They're not going to give you that big contract that every player is looking for. It's crazy, but it's true. Teams will tell you what they think of your ability. And it's been crazy with so many moves that happened during this free agency. Teams got better. And those teams that got better have a similarity in common. That similarity is they paid their players. The teams that paid their players, they got better because they were able to spend the money that they had to win not only now, but to produce for the future and be able to keep their talent on the field. Those teams that got better spent money. And those teams were, in my opinion, teams like the Patriots. The Patriots spent a huge amount of money on free agents this year, but they also spent money for the future and to build the core. Teams like the Colts, teams like the Washington football team, teams in the NFC West. I feel like all of those teams got better. The Rams, the Niners, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks. They all spent money to keep either their guys, their core, or to keep people away from getting other talent like in their division. And surprisingly, the team that won the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl champions from last year, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they got better because they were able to keep their core value guys, to keep their core together. And from winning the Super Bowl last year, they brought every starter back that they had to sign in free agency. And somehow, from winning the Super Bowl last year, they got even better because they brought in talent and they kept their talent together. So that's crazy to think about. The team that won everything, the team that won the Super Bowl, got better. That's scary to think about. If I'm an NFL fan and I'm in the NFC, I'm scared of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they won the Super Bowl last year and they were good. They were legit and they got better. Oh, man, that's scary. Now, with every side of a coin, teams get better and teams get worse. It just happens. Those teams that got worse lost talent and they weren't able to pay their guys. Those teams like the New Orleans Saints, those teams like the Atlanta Falcons, like the Detroit Lions, they lost their key guys, their critical players, and they're not going to be able to produce on the field because A, they lost their guys, and B, they weren't able to spend the money like they needed to. I love a franchise that spends money now to win now. I hate when professional sports, especially in football, I hate when franchises say, you know what, we're just going to lay back and we're not going to win right now. We're not going to spend the money. That's what any fan of any professional sports hate. They want a product to win now. They don't care about the future. They care about now. They want to win now, and I don't think it's fair to the fans for those teams to say, you know what, we're going to tank. We're not going to win right now. We're not going to put a product on the field. Well, understand this. If you don't put a product on the field, you're not going to sell tickets, and you're not going to be able to have a fan base come to your games when everything opens back up and we're able to actually go to stadiums and go to these arenas and see these games and see the competition on the field. That's what fans want the most. What do fans want? Fans want to see competition and a winner on the field. And you know what? Organizations want to put a winner on the field, and the only way they can do that is spending money. Let's go back to the free agency period like I talked about. Free agency, now you can't really win a Super Bowl when it comes to free agents and when it comes to signing free agents in free agency period. But you can build the foundation for the future. I look at free agency kind of like summer homework, like summertime reading. I remember when I was in high school, I'm going to date myself, I had high school summertime reading back in like 09 to 13 when I was in high school. Yeah, I'm a millennial, so what? Deal with it. Going back to summer reading. Remember back to your high school days? You just got out of school, it's summertime, and you wanted to work on your craft. You wanted to work on your body, your beach tan. You wanted to work on your mind. You wanted to hang out with your friends. You wanted to go to the beach. You wanted to do everything. But you didn't want to do summer reading. And on the first day of school of the new year, you knew who did their summer reading and who didn't. You knew who read and you know who went on Spark Notes. Personally, me, I was the one who did Cliff Notes and Spark Notes and watched the movie. I didn't read it all. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go hang out at the beach with my friends. But you knew right when that first day came, you knew who read that book and who read those books that you had to read for those tests and those class, and you knew who didn't. And I was the one who didn't read those books. I had friends who didn't read those books, but you know what? Thankfully for Spark Notes and Cliff Notes, I was able to pass those tests. But you always knew. And that is how the NFL is. You know who addressed their needs and who didn't during the offseason, during free agency. You have teams who addressed needs during the offseason from previous years and previous issues, and they address those needs in free agency and in the draft. You know which teams are going to be good, and you know which teams aren't by those who did their homework over the offseason, who got better, and who was able to address their needs and didn't address their needs. And how do you address your needs? Well, you go look at the game tape, and you go say, okay, this is what we did wrong, and this is what we did right. Now, I don't like to give winners and losers of the off-season. I don't like to give winners and losers of free agency period because I really don't know, and nobody really knows if they are good moves that they're making in the free agency period and in the off-season, because we won't know until the games actually physically start and to see if they actually improved as a team from last year. We can make assumptions all we want, but you know what they say about assumptions. Like I mentioned earlier, the balance of power has shifted in the NFL. I think the balance of power has shifted to the NFC West. By the moves that the NFC West has made, by the moves of the Cardinals, by adding J.J. Watt, by adding A.J. Green to a high-flying offense, I think they solidified themselves as a front runner for the NFC West Championship and the NFC Championship alone. They're going to be a powerhouse with all these moves they made and that high-flying offense. Also, I think a big-time move that was made in the NFC West was my team. I'm from the Bay Area. I love the San Francisco 49ers, and I think they made a huge move by acquiring not only the number 3 pick in the NFL draft, which we'll be getting into shortly, but by bringing back their guys. They are one of those teams who spent money to bring back their core guys and to bring guys out of town into their already dynamic roster. The thing with the Niners, the thing with any NFL team is you have to be able to stay healthy. And I think that they believe that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan believes that with this roster of talent, when healthy, just like in 2019, they were the best team in the NFL, and they came up short because, A, when healthy, they have the best offense, they have the best tight end, arguably, in the league, and they have the best defensive line in the league, arguably. People can talk about every aspect when it comes to, what wins games. So what really does win games? I'll tell you simple. What wins games is the product and the players on the field. You can talk about coaching all you want. You can talk about scheming. But if you don't have players on the field, if you don't have productive, elite NFL players on the field, you're never going to win any NFL game. And that goes with all sports. Sports is circled around and relying around their players to produce on the field of play. Just look at the 2020-2021 San Francisco 49ers. Now, it pains me to say this, but they weren't good. They were not good, but the reason why they weren't good was because of injuries and they weren't able to have their talent on the field. They had $82 million of their roster on injured reserve. How do you think when players playing against superstar talent and those players playing are mid-level, not elite, and these players are going against superstar talent, how do you think the outcome is going to come? How do you think it's going to play out? Of course they're not going to win. They might be in a few games here and there, but they're not going to be good because solely they aren't talented enough, and that's where injuries come into play. Now, injuries in sports, they're inevitable, especially in a high-volume, high-demanding, physically demanding game like professional football. You're going to get injured. You're going to sacrifice your body on the line to win a game, and that's going to come with injuries. They are inevitable. But if you're lucky enough to not have injuries and still have your talent on the field, then you're going to go far when it comes to NFL playoffs. Some teams I think that we've seen in the playoffs from last year are not going to be in it this year, and vice versa. Some teams we didn't see in the playoffs this year are going to be in it this year. Like I think we're going to see the Rams go a long way. We're going to see the San Francisco 49ers go a long way. We're going to see the Tampa Bay Bucks as well, but we're not going to see I don't think the New Orleans Saints are going to go to the playoffs this year. I don't think the Detroit Lions are going to go. I don't think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to go because, A, those teams that spent money And those teams that were able to craft their core together and symbolize guys and bring guys in, those teams are going to go to the playoffs, and those teams are going to be considered a favorite for the Super Bowl championship. But it all depends on injuries. That's one of the most inevitable things in sports, injuries. Like I said before, there are some teams that surprised me during free agency, and there's some teams that weren't surprising and didn't go for it. I love those teams that spent money and spent a lot of money to actually go for it right now and to put a winning product on the field. Like I said before, there are teams who won free agency, and those teams, in my mind, they spent a lot of money. Now, 3 teams that I believe that quote-unquote got better during free agency were those who spent a lot of money, and those teams were the New England Patriots, the San Francisco 49ers, and surprisingly, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I read an article in the New York Times about how if you spent money and you spent money in free agency, you got better. And it just showed how the Patriots and the Niners and the Buccaneers, they spent money to pay their players. And they wanted to win not only now, but secure their future. Now, look at the Patriots. They spent $268 million in free agency alone. They were kind of like, they saw their ex-spouse, Tom Brady. They're kind of like the jealous person on Instagram because they saw Tom Brady win a Super Bowl with a totally different team. And they said, okay, we got to get better. How do we get to that moment? How do we get to that level and try to outdo our exes? So what do? They spent $268 million in free agents alone. They had to keep guys like Kendrick Bourne, like Hunter Henry, like Jonas Sanu, and they paid their guys like Cam Newton. They paid their superstar talent. They brought in guys from different areas to help them compete and help them put a winning product on the field. They finished 7-9 last year. They're going to finish in the playoffs, and they might compete for a Super Bowl championship. Bill Belichick, the hoodie, the man who runs the show in New England. The guy just wants to win and will win at all costs. He's a head coach and GM for a reason. He knows what he's doing. Look out for the Patriots this season. Now, my team, the San Francisco 49ers. I'm from the Bay Area, so you know I loved how they got dirty and they went after it. They spent a whopping $164.9 million in free agency this past season. Now, they were the most injured team in the NFL last season, the 2021 season. They had $82 million of their roster on injured reserve, like I previously stated. You're not going to win on the field when you have your superstar talent sitting on the sideline and you have third and fourth stringers play in a game. So what did they do? They had major issues at the offensive line, and they addressed those issues by giving the best left tackle in the league 6 years, $138 million contract. They spent money. They spent $164.9 million in free agency by adding 2 of the best blockers in football to protect their quote-unquote starting quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. We'll see what they do in the NFL draft when they drafted up to 3. We'll see what they do with Jimmy. But right now, he's their starter. And he had to be protected against the NFC West aggressive pass rushers that the Rams have in Aaron Donald. And with the new addition of the Arizona Cardinals, like I stated before, with J.J. Watt on that defensive line, and you need to be able to protect the quarterback in the NFL. The most important position in NFL, the most important position in sports, in professional sports, is the quarterback position because they lead your team and they're the whole franchise player. They lead your team and they are the player of your franchise. They are the star player and they are the most important because they make the offense go and they're the leader of the team. Another team that was surprising to me, like I said before, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They spent money right after they won the Super Bowl. They paid their guys, and I loved it. They kept most of the band together. They brought back all of their starters, all 11 guys on defense and all 11 guys on offense that won the Super Bowl. They brought them back. they spent $93 million in free agency. Now, it's not as much as some teams like the New England Patriots and like the San Francisco 49ers, but they brought everybody back. Highlighted by a guy who they brought, Shaq Barrett. They brought him back a 4-year, $68 million contract. They signed him for a 4-year, $68 million contract, and he shined at the end of the playoffs. He was their defensive MVP. I loved how they brought back. You don't see that very often with Super Bowl winning teams bringing back all of their guys on offense and on defense. You just don't see that. Teams get complacent. Teams don't want to spend. They say, okay, we're good with this Super Bowl championship. We're not going to spend. And you see talent move from different cities to different cities in free agency like we did before. But I loved the aggressiveness. I love the tenacity of these teams that spend big money on their players and on their core guys to say, hey, we're gonna run it back. Let's run it back. Let's get after it. And let's go into this next season fully loaded with our core. Speaking of next season, we got the NFL 2021 upcoming draft in about 3 to 2 weeks. There's a lot to talk about with the storylines of people willing to trade and people willing to improve their franchises and looking for that franchise player when it comes to drafting an elite quarterback or drafting an elite cornerback to solidify their defense to try to get them over the top to win that Super Bowl and to be competitors. Coming up next, we're going to talk all about the NFL draft. We're going to talk all about the players and the teams and what every team needs and what's going to happen in the first round and all these quarterbacks who are going to be, quote unquote, the saviors of their franchise. And we're going to talk all about that coming up next. So if you're a leatherhead, if you love the NFL, if you love football in general, stick around.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Hey now, what's going on? Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. Bryan here with you again. Glad you can be with us. In the last segment, I talked about the craziness that was this NFL free agency and how teams spent a lot of money and how those teams are going to be successful because they spent a lot of money and they spent a lot of money on their core guys. And I also talked about how injuries are inevitable in all sports, but especially in football. When it comes to a physically demanding and violent game like professional football, injuries are just going to happen. They're just inevitable. And also talked about how it's a player-driven league. Any professional sport is a player-driven league. It's all about the players on the field of competition. You have good players, you're going to win. You don't have good players, you're not going to win. But later on in the show, I'm going to give you my reasons why the college football landscape as a whole will be changed for the better in the next couple of years. Speaking of college football, we're going to be getting into the NFL draft and all these prospects that are going to be taken high in the first round and all throughout the rounds of this upcoming 2021 NFL draft. Now, NFL draft is lined season. That means you're going to be given a lot of information that is pretty much fake news, that these teams are leaking out to make sure that they don't really understand that what they really want to do, and they're kind of like keeping it hush-hush. So, You can't trust a lot of people during this time. But one guy you can trust, one guy who has worked with these respected quarterbacks, one guy who's worked with Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, and a bunch of all these upcoming NFL quarterbacks and quarterbacks already in the league, a guy who you can trust is Jordan Palmer. And he said something really interesting on the radio in San Francisco with the great Mark Willard of KNBR 680, the sports leader. So, we're going to get into what he said about what every team needs and that maybe the needs of the team don't really fit the needs of the quarterback. So we're going to get into what he said and a lot more interesting stuff regarding the NFL draft. So if you're a leatherhead, let's get into it. We're talking the 2021 NFL draft. And honestly, there's only two major periods during the NFL offseason. You got the free agency period, and then you got the NFL draft. Like I mentioned before, you can't win games in the offseason. But you can get better as a franchise by building a strong foundation. And in free agency, it's all about acquiring NFL talent that's already been proven in the league. The NFL draft, it's a little different. The NFL draft is all about getting young talent for cheap. NFL front offices love major talent, good, young, cheap talent. Now, for these guys coming out of college and preparing for the NFL draft, it's kind of like when you're out on the job hunt straight out of college. You know, you just graduated, you're looking for that adult job, you're looking for that job that pays the good money from like $30,000 to $60,000 annually, but no one really tells you how humbling and how frightening the job hunt can be for those trying to get a job in the real world. It's not really something that people talk about, but there's a psyche that, oh, I'm just going to go out there and the first job I'm going to get, it's going to be the best job in the world. That's not what it's like. The job hunt is humbling. You may think you are so confident as a person in your ability, but the job hunt can be humbling, and these people will tell you what they really think of you. The NFL draft is just like the job hunt. These prospects will understand what organizations really think about their ability and really think about how they can perform on the field and help them win through the draft and through these pre-draft workouts, through these pro days at their schools. It's a humbling experience. It can really take a major blow to the ego and the psyche of these players. Just like in the real world when you're on the job hunt and these corporations post a job and you go for interviews and they're evaluating your talent and how they can help you and how you can help them in the job. These franchises are doing the same thing with these young talent, these young prospective college prospects. They're taking their abilities and they're saying, okay, can we work with these people? Can we not work with these people? Are they going to help us win? What's the overall goal for this young draft pick? So it's a humbling experience because these draft picks are the best in their field in college. But then when they get to the professional level, they get a glimpse of what these franchises and these professional organizations believe in their talent and what they really understand as, okay, it's a taste of reality. You may think as an NFL talent and NFL prospect that you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. But then you come to realize, oh, I have a lot of stuff I need to work on, and I wasn't so great because I wasn't picked that high. I was supposed to be picked at the number 1 position, but then I'm picked in the top 5 or top 10 or even dropped to the second round. So it's a humbling experience for these people who are trying to get NFL jobs and trying to get professional jobs in the NFL and in the professional sports world. So let's get into the draft logistics. Top 10 picks are as followed. You got Jacksonville at number 1. You got the Jets at number 2. And honestly, all these experts have been saying that, okay, the top 2 positions are locked up. The top 2 positions are Jacksonville is taking Trevor Lawrence because Urban Meyer loves Trevor Lawrence and loves his new foundation that he's going to set in Jacksonville as being the head coach. And the Jets are in love with the BYU quarterback, and they just love his ability to run, pass, and do everything. Plus, they just traded Sam Darnold to the Carolina Panthers for a slew of picks. So, First 2 picks are done. Apparently, that's what they say. All these media outlets are reporting that the top 2 picks are already gone. They're already done. Lawrence is going to Jacksonville and Wilson's going to the Jets. So the draft doesn't really start until the San Francisco 49ers select at number 3. And they made a huge trade to get there. This is the kind of trade that changes the momentum of the franchise. This is a make or break trade within the franchise. You're giving up so much draft capital. Now, the official trade details is that 49ers are getting the 3rd overall pick in this upcoming 2021 NFL draft. And they sent Miami the number 12 pick. They swapped picks from 3 to 12, but also they sent them a 2022 first-round pick, a 2022 third-round pick, and a 2023 first-round pick. So essentially, they're trading 4 picks for 1 player, for 1 pick, the number 3 pick in this year's draft. That is a ton of draft capital. What does that mean for the 49ers? Well, it means they want a top player who's a QB, because essentially they only have 3 QBs on the roster. They have Jimmy Garoppolo, who's injury prone, and we don't know if he can produce at the NFL level as of yet. But we've seen glimpses, and there's hope there. We've also seen Josh Rosen. He's also on the QB depth chart too, and he's unproven, but he's a top quarterback who's young and needs to develop. And they also acquired a guy today, Nate Sheffield, from the Eagles, so they essentially have 3 quarterbacks on the roster. Now, none of those players, except Jimmy Garoppolo, really excites you about what's going to happen at the quarterback position. Now, this roster is loaded when healthy. You have the best tight end in the league. You have one of the best offenses in the league. You have one of the best running games from Mike Shanahan to Kyle Shanahan's playbook. You have one of the best offensive lines, and you have one of the best defenses in the league. They are at a win-now mode. So they think that if they add another quarterback who's a dynamic player, they can expand their window for another 5 to 10 years and become a Super Bowl champion like they were trying to in 2018, 2019, and like they were trying to back in the 80s when they were so successful and they were the dominant team of the 80s. Going back to the NFL draft, there's 3 QBs essentially on the board they can take. Remember, these ESPN analysts believe that A, Lawrence is going number 1, and B, Wilson going number 2. So number 3, the 49ers have options. They have options at the quarterback. They can take a guy from Ohio State, Justin Fields, who's big, who's athletic, who has a strong arm, who knows the system well. They can also take Mac Jones, who's not as physically gifted as these other quarterbacks, but he's accurate and he's a winner and he's proven he can win and do things at the quarterback position that most can't. And then there's a wild card in Trey Lance. So they have a lot of options. They can go to the number 3 pick. Now, what does Kyle Shanahan and what do the 49ers need in a quarterback? Well, some of the characteristics that Kyle Shanahan has stated is that he needs his quarterback to do a multitude of things. He needs his quarterback to be able to throw the ball deep. That means he needs to have a strong arm. He needs to be able to read the defenses. He needs to be able to be smart and intelligent, because all these defenses, especially in the NFC West, they have a lot of talented people on the roster, and they're going to change up the schemes, and he needs a quarterback who can read defenses and make sure that he can put his offense on top. He needs to be a football guy. What does a football guy mean? A football guy lives, breathes, and eats football. The quarterback is usually the leader of the team. They're the leader of the offense. So they need to set an example for other guys. And they need to be the first one in the facility, working, watching film, working on his mechanics, and working on his repetition, and working on his craft. And needs to be the last one out of the building, late at night, studying film and making sure that he's giving their team the best ability to win. That's what a football guy does. That's a football guy, and you can tell instantly if one guy is a football guy and one guy is just out there just to collect a paycheck. So, some of the things they need to do, quarterbacks in Kyle Shanahan's system need to be able to throw the ball deep. They run play action pass and off the zone read, so they need to be able to throw the ball deep and on the run. They need to be able to be smart. Need to be able to read defenses. They need to be a football guy. Do they love football? And he needs to be accurate with the ball. He needs to be able to hit guys in stride, right on the money, right on the chest, and be able to fit in tight windows because defenses are flying around fast and they need to be able to complete passes because Kyle Shanahan loves to throw the ball and he also loves to throw the play action pass off the run. All three of these quarterbacks who will potentially be on the board for Kyle and the San Francisco 49ers, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and Mac Jones, have those abilities, but they don't have every one ability. They don't have it all. They're not the perfect quarterback. There's no Andrew Luck. There's no Peyton Manning in this draft, but they have abilities that they know they can hone and craft to become great NFL quarterbacks and to lead their team and become that franchise player they want to become. I said earlier that there are a lot of smoke screens out there in the NFL draft. It's lying season when it comes to NFL draft, and people need to be aware of that. People just can't believe everything they hear. One guy you can trust, one guy who's worked with these people week in and week out during this process and trained multiple quarterbacks in the NFL and knows what to do, is a guy named Jordan Palmer, who is a experienced NFL quarterback who works with these guys and who's like a quarterback trainer. He doesn't like to be called a guru, but he's a quarterback trainer who's worked with guys like Trey Lance, guys like Trevor Lawrence. He said something really interesting that I think that everybody should be aware of. There are a lot of people talking about a lot of different aspects with these potential prospects that separate them from the pack. And a lot of people talk about arm strength, ability on the field, but also a lot of people talk about experience. One person that you should really just pay attention and really follow is Jordan Palmer. And he went on KMBR 680 in San Francisco with Mark Willard on in late March to talk about the NFL draft and these prospects at the QB position at the top of the draft. And he said something really interesting that the fans should take into account. A lot of fans talk about experience. A lot of fans talk about, oh, this person has better experience than that person because they played in the SEC and this person played in like a NAIA or a lower division in college. And honestly, a lot of fans talk about experience with these young college athletes. Jordan Palmer gave a really interesting answer about how those fans need to think about talking about experience while evaluating prospects, especially at the quarterback position. He said something really interesting that a lot of people should take into account when evaluating these quarterback prospects and these NFL talent prospects in the upcoming draft. He said a lot of people take into account and talk about experience, but they look at it through a metric of time. He gave an example of a guy going to school for 3 years compared to a guy going to school for 1 year. Now, you may think that the guy going to school for 3 years has more experience than the guy going to school for 1 year, but that is not the reality. The reality is the kind of experience you're getting is not the same. It's not always a metric of time. That is what he's trying to explain. He explained that a guy who went to school for 3 years at a subpar QB development school has 3 years of below average experience, compared to a guy who goes to school for 1 year at a good QB development school may have more experience than the guy going to a school who has 3 years of bad QB experience. So, when you're talking about experience, you can't look at it through a metric of time because that's not always the case. For example, look at Trey Lance and compare him to other quarterbacks. Most fans, the casual fan, thinks, okay, a guy who went to Ohio State, a guy who went to Clemson, a guy who went to the SEC and played against SEC talent may have more experience than a guy who only played 1 year and a guy who played at North Dakota State like Trey Lance. Some say he is experienced. Some say he's inexperienced. Palmer, who I think is very reliable and very critical source that can be valued, he thinks that he can be valuable. He's worked with him. He's been with him through the thick and thin. He says he has a lot of experience based on the program that he is in, based on the program that he is with. He has time to develop. Every quarterback needs time to develop in the NFL. That's just what NFL young talent is. Not Rome wasn't built in a day. People need to understand that. People need time to develop. Even the best quarterbacks in the league, like an Aaron Rodgers, like a Tom Brady, like a Peyton Manning, they needed time to develop into the great Hall of Famers that they are today. So when coming to experience, you can't look at it as a metric of time. You have to look at it as a whole, and you can't really just have blinders on. Remember, people, that NFL draft time, it's lying season. So that means you have to have your guard up. You have to understand who has valuable information and who's just trying to put a smoke screen. And tell me, there's a lot of people on social media and a lot of these so-called experts and talking heads with these national media outlets that will give you false information because they are being fed false information by the people in their organizations to try to hide the fact that A, they don't want their information being leaked out, and B, they want to throw people off that is their competition for the upcoming NFL draft. It's a business, and they want to win at the end of the day, and they would do anything to win. And if it involves throwing smoke and throwing shade at other people and trying to get them off the direction that they really want to, they will do it at all cost. One crazy aspect that people rely on in the NFL draft is that it's just crazy to think about people who are looking for these 17 and 18-year-olds and 19-year-old kids to lead their NFL franchises into the promised land. You know, it's never been shown that a guy who is coming right out of college, who's a quarterback, is going to be able to lead your team to the promised land. It's never been done. No rookie has ever led their team to the promised land. And it's just crazy to think that in the NFL and in the draft that you have so much hope and you have so much anticipation to see what these guys look like. You have to understand, and people need to understand, that they need time to develop. These young guys need time to develop. They need time to practice. They need time to develop into the players they're going to become in the future. Like I said before, and like a lot of people said, Rome wasn't built in a day. People need time to develop, young people especially. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time. And diamonds aren't crested and molded in one day. So as NFL fans and fans in general, we need to be patient. We need to have a sense of patience because they're not going to develop. And these people who we think are going to be Hall of Famers, they need time to learn the system. They need time to develop. And it's typically their job. You just don't go the first day of your new job and say, okay, I'm the best that's ever happened. I'm the best that there is. I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. No, they need time and you need time to develop. Fans have to understand that these players coming out of college are college kids. They're going against pro athletes. These guys coming out of college are straight out of college and they're 19, 20-year-olds. They don't know everything in life. You didn't know everything in life in 20, didn't you? It's like asking somebody to be prepared and be knowledgeable the first day and know everything. That's not realistic. What's realistic is they just got out of college, they have some knowledge, but they need time to develop. Speaking of college football, we're going to be talking all about how the college football landscape is going to be changed within the next couple of years. And we're going to be talking about the college football picture as a whole and what to look for in this college football season. So if you love football at the college football level, at the collegiate level, you're going to want to stick around for this next session coming up on the other side.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Hey now, what's going on? Welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Good. Now it's legal. Bryan here with you again. Thanks for joining me today. Just a recap of what we went through. First couple segments, we talked about the craziness of NFL free agency and the craziness that is this NFL draft. We also talked about how NFL draft season is line season. You got to have your smoke screens up, people. You don't know what's going to happen. And you know the draft starts at 3 with the 49ers, and everybody wants to talk about experience and the lack of experience between prospects, especially at the quarterback position. So you just got to put your smoke screens up, and we're going to talk about college football right now. It's springtime, and you know what that means. Spring practices are underway with college football. Spring practice is always a nice sign of hope. It's kind of like spring training in baseball. Everybody's excited. Everybody's hopeful that, you know what, this is going to be the year. And you know what? Regarding all sports, there's nothing like college football. The best part about college football and college athletics in general is that the best young crop of talent across the country, across the United States, are competing and showing their skills and showing why they believe that they are the best and showcasing those skills in games. There's nothing better than watching college football in fall, in August, and having the best teams go at it. One thing that I'm looking forward to after this whole pandemic is over is getting back to live sporting events, especially live college football events. During those certain times, we have had a lot of things taken away from us. The sports world has changed, but you know, it really broke my heart to see these young athletes in high school, in college, not being able to compete last year. These kids who earn a right for a scholarship, who earn a right to play at the biggest stage in college, deserve to play. It's unfair for these seniors trying to finish out their senior season. Man, there is nothing like college football, and there's nothing like college athletics. It's one of my favorite things to do is to just go to a college atmosphere, go to a college game and just tailgate on a Saturday afternoon, getting loose before the big game, having a few pops here and there, talking smack with your friends about the upcoming game, and just that atmosphere I miss and I love. You just love the atmosphere. You walk into the stadium, the band's playing, the roar of the crowd, the student section's going crazy. College athletics is just a great time, and I hope everyone is able to experience that moment and experience that atmosphere, because it is a once-in-a-lifetime atmosphere, and it is so wholesome. There's nothing like going to a college football game on a Saturday afternoon with your friends and with your family and just having a good time watching the best sport on the planet and watching the best players at a young age compete and watching these potential NFL superstars in college at a young age. And there's just nothing like it. Hopefully, college football can take a lesson from what March Madness did, and hopefully they can play a full season this upcoming year. So, let's get into the college football landscape, shall we? There's a lot of talking points that people all over the country love to discuss. Yeah, we had the COVID season, and that was, it was kind of a flop, but we still got some college football, but hopefully they can play a regular full season. We got rule changes to talk about. We got the college football playoff. That's going to be interesting. And we got, the basic Power 5 conferences in that playoff. So, spring practice is underway for many of these programs, and it's not too early to think about the top 25 pool. That's what everybody loves to discuss when you talk about college football. Now, I was reading on NCAA.com that they have a way too early college football 25 pool. Top 25 poll in April and in March. So, I was reading this article, and you have your staples. If you know college football, you know those staples from the previous years. You got the Alabama, you got the Clemsons, you got the Oklahomas, you got the Georgias, and you have the Ohio States. But there's some surprises like Coastal Carolinas and Old Misses who crept up into the way too early pool. Me being a West Coast guy, and I know that there are a lot of us out there, if I'm a Pac-12 fan and I'm a West Coast guy, I am worried. I am concerned as a West Coast guy. The Pac-12, and I'll throw in the Mountain West in there too. I am concerned with these programs and these conferences and their ranking. I'm looking at these rankings and I'm seeing a consistent pattern of there are no Pac-12 or West Coast teams on top 10 rankings in this conference pool. And that's crazy to me. The Pac-12 is known as the conference of champions, man. And you're not even in the top 10? The highest Pac-12 school I've seen is Washington. Washington comes in at number 12. That's the highest team I've seen in the Pac-12 this year. That's crazy. It frustrates me as a football fan and as a football fan on the West Coast. There is this ideology that the Pac-12, out of all the Power 5 conferences, out of the SEC, the ACC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the Pac-12, the Pac-12 does not get the recognition that these other conferences get. And it frustrates me as a Pac-12 football fan and as a West Coast football fan, because on the West Coast, there seems to be an East Coast bias. And all throughout college football, there seems to be an East Coast bias that just frustrates me, and I'm sick of it. And there's nobody to blame except the Pac-12 itself, and you have to start with the commissioner. Former Commissioner Larry Scott is out, thankfully, and now the Pac-12 can take a step in the right direction. A conference that prides himself on being the conference of championships should at least have a team in the top 10. It doesn't make any sense. People look at the Pac-12 like that one guy who just can't get out of their own way, who always screws up. You ever seen that one guy in school? He struggles with the easy tasks. He never shows up to class on time. He always has an excuse why he's not better. Oh, I could have gone D1 if I'm an athlete, if I just would have done this or this would have happened. And it's never their fault. We've all seen that person in school. They never are prepared for anything. They are just lazy. The Pac-12 is just lazy. I'm calling them out because you know why? It's frustrating to see such great conference and such great schools not being recognized. Hopefully, whoever the Pac-12 decides to admit their new commissioner does a way better job than that guy Larry Scott did ever as a Pac-12 commissioner. Now, you can argue and moan all you want about, this is wrong with the Pac-12. They need to be more recognized. So, how do we find ways to make the Pac-12 better? The Pac-12 has a lot of issues as a whole regarding college athletics. So, one way we can improve Pac-12 football as a whole is able to schedule better games and primetime games in the afternoon. College football as a whole is all about the Saturday afternoon game. That is a primetime spot between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. That is the primetime game. You see schools and you see conferences like the SEC, like the Big 12, like the ACC, all play between those time slots. The Pac-12 needs to get it together and agree to one of these huge media outlets to schedule their games. The Pac-12 should be going out to ESPN, CBS, NBC, and trying to agree to a multi-year deal to schedule their games during primetime hours on Saturdays. It's just common sense because there is an East Coast bias within college athletics, especially in college football. Many people on the West Coast don't like to admit it, but there is an East Coast bias when it comes to college football. Everybody on the East Coast thinks, our schools are better because we have better talent and we have better players on the field. And the Pac-12, compared to SEC, ACC, and the other Power 5 conferences, aren't as good. Well, you know what? I'm sick and tired of this bias, but they're exactly right. There is an East Coast bias, and it's the Pac-12's fault. You know why? Because they aren't able to keep recruiting and keep recruits in the West Coast to go to these West Coast schools in the Pac-12. I don't know how many times I've seen recruits from the West Coast, from California, from Arizona, from Hawaii, from Washington, choose an ACC school like Clemson or an SEC school like Georgia, like LSU, like Alabama, instead of a Pac-12 school where they're known, where they're born and raised from. It's crazy to me, but there is an East Coast bias because the Pac-12 is not doing these schools justice. It's sickening to watch these schools like Alabama, like Clemson, and like Georgia take California and West Coast kids and turn them into superstars just because they have better talent. And you know what? There's no one to blame but the Pac-12 itself. The Pac-12 is doing a disservice to all these teams in the West Coast, like a USC, like a UCLA, like an Oregon, like an Arizona. All these teams in the West Coast are not able to compete with recruiting-wise. All these schools can't compete because they know their conference is the worst conference of the Power 5 schools. I'm just going to say it. The Pac-12 so far is the laughingstock of the Power 5 conferences. Now, like I said before, how do we get better? How do we get the Pac-12 back on the map? There are a couple of things that they need to do. First, scheduling. No more 7:30 p.m. night games Pacific time. No one's going to watch those on the East Coast. No one's going to know who these players are on the East Coast. College football is all about Saturday afternoons. Let's keep it like that. And we have to keep the recruiting and the recruits, West Coast recruits, back in the Pac-12 and back on the West Coast. The Pac-12 has to do a better job in keeping West Coast recruits on the West Coast and having them play for Pac-12 schools, because there is a lot of talent on the West Coast. Just look at the guy Najee Harris, who was a stud running back for Alabama, and he went there after he graduated from Antioch, California. He was a West Coast recruit, and he was supposed to stay on the West Coast. But the Pac-12 couldn't keep him. The West Coast couldn't keep him because he knew his path to the draft, and he knew the best talent was elsewhere. So the Pac-12 has to step it up when it comes to talent, and the first thing they have to do is find a commissioner. That is the first and foremost thing that is above anything else. You have to be able to find a new commissioner. Now, you can say, okay, who are they going to find? Who are they going to have? Well, a person that I love to read, a person who's knowledgeable about the Pac-12, that fans should read and listen to. He's from the San Jose Mercury News. His name is John Wilner. He has a Wilner hotline, and it's all about the Pac-12. It's about Pac-12 football, basketball, baseball, everything. He has a great story on there talking about the search for the new commissioner in the Pac-12. And now, he said some things that said sources told him it could be a while. It could go deep into April. And honestly, that's not encouraging as a football fan on the West Coast. If I'm having my conference struggle, I need the best person right away to compete with these schools and these conferences to be able to get the best and keep the best talent on the West Coast. Now, we said 10 to 12 people are considered. So, what does it take to be a good commissioner in sports, and a commissioner as a conference in college especially? Well, you got to be passionate about sports. Whoever the new Pac-12 commissioner can and will be, I hope they are passionate and they take a look at what's happening in these SEC conferences and in these ACC conferences, and I hope they've learned that football is key to driving your conference. They should be passionate about football, and they should know that the Pac-12 has been lacking in areas like recruiting, like scheduling, like marketing, compared to all these teams and all these conferences in the SEC, in the ACC, in the Big 12, and in the Big 10. Personally, I think the new commissioner should be a Pac-12 person. What does that mean? They should know, they should live, they should eat, they should breathe the Pac-12 and the West Coast Conference. That is how you know that they are dedicated to the craft and they are dedicated to this conference. Don't give me someone from the East Coast. Give me someone who's from the West Coast who has knowledge and who has the ability to make the Pac-12 better because they know firsthand what they need. And they need to be excited about sports and about marketing their brand and the Pac-12 brand as a whole. So, this article, it went through a lot of names, about 10 to 12 people, and I won't bore you with the facts. But one name, if you're a football fan, one name that I loved to see in this article. He dropped about 10 to 12 names, but one name that I really just loved and it really just got me excited about the commissioner of Pac-12 football is none other than the great Oliver Luck. Now, some of you may not know, but he is the father of the great ex-Stanford quarterback and great Colts quarterback Andrew Luck. He would bring the Pac-12 back on the map. Now, you may say, okay, what is his experience? Well, he did run 2 pro football leagues, the NFL Europe and the little thing I like to call the XFL. He knows the Pac-12 because he has a son, he has family who's played in the Pac-12, and he spent time over in Stanford and analyzing the Pac-12. So he knows it, and he would be a great headline, and it would be great publicity for the Pac-12 as a whole. It would help recruits want to play for the Pac-12 just because of the name Luck. Recruits from all across the nation would say, oh, Mr. Luck is the commissioner of the Football League. He can get me to where I want to go in the NFL if they have dreams and aspirations of going and playing in a conference that can help them get to the NFL, which everybody in football, all the players want to go to the NFL. If you're in college football, you dream of playing in the NFL. And when big-time recruits from high school see an NFL superstar and his son leading the way for the Pac-12 again, they're going to be ecstatic. They're going to be excited to play Pac-12, and they're going to be excited to showcase their skills and stay on the West Coast. It's all about three things when it comes to football. It's all about recruiting, it's all about marketing, it's all about scheduling. If you're able to get a big name like Oliver Luck as your commissioner of your conference, you are going to be able to get recruiting. You're going to be able to get big-time marketing deals, and you're going to be able to get great schedules for your games. The Pac-12 has a chance as a whole to get back to being the Conference of Champions again. And it starts with the commissioner, and it starts with having the right mindset of, okay, we're not going to be subjected to this East Coast bias, and we are going to establish our dominance when it comes to recruiting and keep these West Coast kids to play football for us instead of these SEC teams and these ACC and these East Coast teams. Get the Pac-12 back on the Conference of Champions like they claim, and get Oliver Luck, Andrew Luck's father, as the commissioner of the new Pac-12, and you will be able to see the improvements that will be made overnight, and you will be able to see why the Pac-12 will return as Conference of Champions within the next couple of years. I know it to be true. That is what is wrong with the Pac-12, and that is what's wrong with West Coast football. East Coast bias is a hell of a thing, and it's real. But with Oliver Luck as commissioner leading the way, you will be able to get the Pac-12 back on the map. And as a new commissioner, Oliver Luck will be able to put the Pac back on the map and able to fight for championships and national championships in the college football playoff year in and year out. I'm tired of not having the representation of the Pac-12 in the college football playoffs, and that might change within the next couple of years because there is a shift that is going to be coming in the highly controversial college football playoff. Possibly an expansion of teams, maybe ranging from 4 teams back to 8. We don't know, but if you love college football, you're going to want to stick around for this next segment, all about how the college football playoff is going to change and change for the better and going to make college football as a whole more exciting to watch. Coming up on the other side.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
now, welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Bryan Iglesia. Thanks for joining me again. Now, we talked all about football. We talked all about college football. We talked about the NFL and the craziness that happened in this last free agency period. We talked about the draft. We talked about how all these recruits are going to fare out and where all these recruits are going to be going when it comes to the quarterback position. We also talked about college football and went on a crazy rant about college football, specifically Pac-12 football, and how they need to step up their game to truly crown themselves as the Conference of Champions. But, like I teased earlier, we're going to get into the state of college football as a whole and in general, and how that state will change drastically, how the image of college football will change for the good. But before I go any further, we as a people have to acknowledge these last 8 to 10 months have been hard, have been difficult. These have truly been uncertain times, and these times we've experienced as a people a lot of stuff taken away from us. People have lost family members. People have lost friends. People have lost their jobs, their homes. Our daily lives as we know it has been flipped upside down due to this pandemic and this coronavirus. And it just shows me that we have a gift in sports. We have a gift in the things we love to do outside of our daily lives. And this pandemic has showed me why sports in general, to me, are so important, because we are able to connect with others on a deeper level. Sports brings people together. It's going to be so nice to get fans back into the stands. It's going to be so nice to be able to experience live sporting events. Fans in stands means we're getting back to normal, even with restrictions. Now, I know some of you may not like this. Some of you may not like going to games with masks on and social distancing, but you need to understand we are getting back to normal, and this is one of the things that we need to do. Sports bring people together. It doesn't matter what race you are, what culture, what your political affiliation is, what your age is, and what you have as an ideology. People of all walks of life can come together as one and cheer on their favorite sports teams, their favorite players, and that is the aspect that I love about sports. As a fan, and as fans all over, you have had this experience one time in your life as a fanatic. Think back to the last live sporting event you went to. For me, personally, my last live sporting event, Levi Stadium, 2019, the NFC Championship game. The 49ers were playing the Packers. I remember this day fondly, like the back of my hand. You know, it was a day that the weather wasn't great. It was foggy, it was muggy, but it was still a crisp day. It was a perfect weather for football. Some of you may remember this game. 70,000 fans were going crazy during the championship game for the NFC. The place was packed. The atmosphere was electric. The energy was infectious. All throughout Santa Clara, you could feel a vibe that was just positive and infectious throughout the city. The 49ers, the players felt it, and they produced, they put a slacking on the Packers to advance the Super Bowl. But the energy was infectious, and it couldn't happen without the fans in the stands. It couldn't happen without the 70,000 people screaming and having that roaring crowd. It's just one thing that I will never forget. I will never forget celebrating with strangers on the street about Mostert's historical 4 touchdown in that game. I remember, I think I high-fived like 50 to 100 people on the street walking to my car that game, because it was just so energetic. It was so eventful, and it was so live. And it was all because of the fans. It was all because of their energy. We as sports fans, we've all had that moment in our life where we celebrate with total strangers who we have no idea and we know nothing about. But we know that they're a fan of the game, they're a fan of sports, and they're a fan of our team, and we celebrate with them. We've all had that moment in life. But we've also all had that moment where we were affected at one point in our lives during this pandemic. These last 8 to 10 months, they have been hard. And it's been hard to watch sports for me without fans. Sports during this pandemic have been hit hard, but there's no sport that was hit harder than college football. This shortened season, something wasn't right watching the games with no fans in the stands. I hated the shortened season. I hated not having the atmosphere come through my television and not being able to tailgate with my friends, with my family members, and not be able to go to these games and just feel the enthusiasm, the atmosphere throughout the air. Something didn't feel right. It's like I was watching practices. It just goes to show that as sports, these teams need the fans, and the fans need the teams. You can't have one without the other. Fans add another element to sports. They add the craziness. They add the enthusiasm, the energy that players want and players need. Don't get it twisted. These players and these fans need each other. These coaches, these players, they need the fans. They need their enthusiasm. They need their energy to pump them up. It's always better when you're playing in front of a packed house than when you're playing not in a packed house. When you're playing in a packed house, you just feel better about the enthusiasm, about the game in general. When you're playing in front of people who are cardboard cutouts and no one in the stands, then you're just going to treat it like another game. You're just going to go through the motions. It just shows that players perform better with fans in the stands. The game of college football, it showed exactly why players need fans in the stands. The game of college football as a whole needs fans in the stands. Professional sports, they need fans. Every type of sport, they need fans. But going back to college football, especially, there's going to be a change within the landscape, like I mentioned earlier, with the college football playoff as a whole. The image of college football. So, the college football playoff, we know, is one of the most controversial topics in sports. Right now, it's only the best 4 teams to play for a chance to play for a championship. In my opinion, I believe every Division I school, if you are able, if you meet the requirements, you should be able to compete for a national championship. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you meet the requirements, you should be able to compete for a national championship. Now, I'm hearing whispers that the college football landscape as a whole could change, and change for the good. Some people may say that change is never good. In my opinion, I think this change would be good. And this change would be good for the game and for the fans. So, what's the change going to be? Well, the change is going to be that 4-team playoff could change to an 8-team playoff. What are your thoughts? Personally, I've read a lot of stuff about this, and I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and I love the change. I love that they could possibly change from a 14 playoff to an 18 playoff. It just brings so much excitement, so much joy, and it's just what college football needs. Now, a lot of people, they don't understand how this is going to work. So, how is it going to work? Well, you take the Power 5 conference winners. You take the winner of the SEC, the ACC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the Pac-12 championship games, and you deem them eligible for this playoff. You do it based on records and based on seedings, and you pick the best 5 teams out of those 5 conferences. Now, you have 3 wild cards to make 8 teams. Now, how do you find those wild cards? Well, you base it off strength of schedule and record. If you are deeming a person or a team able to compete for a national championship, you should deem everybody able for a national championship that meet requirements, that meet that requirement to compete. This, having 8 teams instead of 4, adding 4 more teams, gives a lot more room to work with. It gives a lot more hope to these schools to compete. It gives hope to these schools like UCFs, like the Boise States, like the Coastal Carolinas. It gives hopes to these players for a chance to accomplish their dream in college. If you ask every coach and every player who plays at the Division I level what their dreams and what their aspirations is at the beginning of the season, they will tell you one thing only, and that is to win a national championship. And some teams, flat out, they don't have a chance because they aren't good enough or they're not in a great conference. This will give more teams the ability to have a chance to win a national title and have a chance to win and compete for their dreams. It will kind of be like what the NCAA tournament is in basketball. In basketball, they let 70 to 60 to 70 teams compete for a chance to win at a national title. I love every aspect about the NCAA tournament when it comes to basketball because it gives these teams and these low-level mid-major teams the ability to compete and the ability to pursue their dreams of having a national championship aspirations. I love it. Honestly, I think expanding the college football playoff from 4 teams to 8 teams to possibly even 10, it's a win-win-win for everyone. First win, more schools will have a chance to play and compete for a national championship, like I said. The second win, the TV corporations, the ESPNs, the Foxes, the NBCs, the CBS networks, they will love the drama, they will love it, and they will look at it like a March Madness in NCAA hoops. They will love the possibility of the upsets. They will love the Cinderella stories. The people love to watch Cinderella stories. People love to see David beat Goliath. They just love to see that. And it's going to draw more eyeballs and more interests to the games. And that means more money and more TV revenue for commercials and more TV time for these companies. That's the second one. And the third one, the fans will love it because it's more football to watch. We all know, if you're a football fan, if you're a sports fan in general in the United States, we all know that football is king. Now, what do I mean by that? Football is the most watched sport in the United States, and it is the best sport that people believe to play. And this expansion could happen within the next couple of seasons, and it's good for the game. Now, it will be good for the sport because of those 3 reasons. It's a win-win-win. The fans will love it, the TV corporations will love it, and more schools will have the ability to play for a national championship. Because that's all anybody in college sports wants to be able to do. They want to be able to compete, they want to be able to play for a national championship, and they want to be able to show off their skills and try to state why they are the best and why they have been practicing 24/7, 365 for a chance to win and compete for a national championship. Now, another aspect that I think that is going to happen that will change the game of college sports in general, specifically college football, is I believe that these players who sacrifice their bodies week in and week out, I believe they will get paid. It's time to start paying college football athletes and athletes in college in general. There comes a point in time when you go to college and you go to Division I and you're the best of the best around the world and you are basically a professional athlete. You are making sacrifices by skipping classes, by putting your body on the line, and by putting your mental fortitude on the line and sacrificing not only your body, but your mind. In my opinion, I believe that college athletes need to get paid, especially those who are at the Division I level. They're getting a free education, they're getting all these scholarships, but they are putting their body and putting their mind on the line. And they're pretty much professional athletes already, and college football is a business. I don't like how these teams and these coaches, especially at the Division I level, especially for football, are getting paid millions of dollars. They are using their image, they're using their brand. There is so much as fans that we don't see that go on behind the scenes in college athletics. I don't care if you're a football player, you're a basketball player, you're a baseball player, you're just a college athlete in general. We as fans don't see what goes on behind the scenes. We're not able to see what goes on in practice. We're not able to see what's going on in film rooms and in study rooms. We're only able to see the little glimpse during these sporting events and during these games. We aren't able to see what's going on behind the scenes. And honestly, from the stories I've heard, from the stories I've read, and from the stories that a lot of you have heard, these athletes are being treated like second-class citizens. We see all these stories about these coaches making millions of dollars, these Division I coaches making millions of dollars to go and coach these college athletics. We see these television companies produce these games and getting paid from their TV revenue. And it seems like everybody's getting paid. You see coaches getting paid millions of dollars. You see ADs getting paid millions of dollars. But it's time to start paying the athletes. It is mind-boggling to me as a former athlete, as a former college football athlete, to see that these people are sacrificing not only their time, their bodies, but their minds to compete on the field of play at the collegiate level. And it's crazy to me that these administrations and these coaches and these sports directors and these ADs are getting paid millions of dollars. And the most important people and the most important aspect of college sports, the players playing on the field of play, these players that are competing every day, week in and week out, are not getting paid. And that just frustrates me the most, because those are the people, those are the young kids who are using their image and using their brand. It just shows now in 2020, everybody who is a professional athlete and everybody who is a college athlete has their own brand. It just happens because of social media. It happens because of Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat. It just shows that everybody has their own brand. And people, especially college athletes, should be able to be recognized and should be able to be paid for their brand. If college football and these college sports are able to be streamed on these big time networks like SEC Network, like the Pac-12 Network, like CBS, like ESPN, like all these television companies are streaming their biggest games, they should be able to get paid. It's not fair in my mind to the athlete who sacrifices their body on a day in and day in basis and sacrifices their mind and puts in the hard work and puts in the necessary effort to be a Division I athlete in whatever sport, and they don't get paid. Okay, you can tell me that they get scholarships and they get a free education. Some of these kids flat out don't go to school. They just don't. They don't go to classes. They don't get an education. Some of these kids just go and play their sport. And that's not fair to those people to go to school and they get a free education, and those people who don't, but they're forced to be in these organizations and they're not getting anything out of it. They're not getting paid. They're not getting any type of recognition for their brand. College sports, I hate to say this, but college sports is lacking when it comes to paying their athletes. And basically, if you think college sports and college athletics is not a business, it is, and you're wrong. It is a business, and they are making millions of dollars off the advertisements, off the TV money, and coaches are making millions of dollars coaching these players. And these players aren't getting paid? These players aren't getting a cut of that salary, a cut of that chunk? I think that is ridiculous. It's ridiculous how these people who are college athletes aren't getting paid, and you have ADs and district directors and sports directors and coaches getting paid millions of dollars, and TV companies making millions of dollars off their revenue, because they produce the product on the field of college sports and college athletics, and college athletes as a general and as a whole are not being paid. I think it's crazy. It's crazy to me how they sacrifice their body and they sacrifice their minds. Just think, if you were sacrificing your mind and your body every day when you go to work, and every day you're sacrificing and you don't get as much as you think you'd be paid, how would you feel? I would feel pissed that I wasn't getting paid for the work I was doing, and I wasn't able to brand myself, and I wasn't able to expand and make the most money that I could with my brand. I wouldn't be able to exploit those offers when it comes to getting paid and getting money and getting tuition. It just pisses me off that these college athletes aren't getting paid, and I feel like there's a wind and there's a hierarchy and change in power, and these athletes will be able to get paid, and we will be able to see this through the power of social media, through the power of technology, and through people thinking, okay, well, it's time to start paying these people because they're making so much money, and the most important aspect of this company and of this product, the athletes on the field of play competing week in and week out and sacrificing their body and sacrificing their minds and sacrificing their times and giving up their education to please you and to please a crowd and entertain the people. They aren't getting paid, and that is ridiculous to me. And that is why I think a lot of people will take into account that these athletes who sacrifice what they do for a living and compete on a day in and day out basis will be able to get paid. And that is something that is going to change drastically within not only college football, but in football as a whole and college athletics as a whole as well. Because at the end of the day, people need to understand that sports, especially pro sports, and it's getting into the college level, that sports is a business. And these people, these athletes who are the most important part of that business, who make the money to bring fans in, they need to get paid. And they are surely lacking of not paying these young athletes for producing entertainment. Because at the end of the day, sports is a business and sports is entertainment. And in these last 8 to 9 months, it has been difficult for people to see and people to have some sort of entertainment enjoying their life. And I know a lot has been taken away from a lot of people. These times have been uncertain, these times have been unpredictable, and these times have been unprecedented. But it's great to be getting back to normal. It's great to see people being resilient. But we have to stay the course. We can't do this alone. Like in team sports, in any team sport, it's going to take a team effort. We need everyone to continue doing the right thing. Stay informed, being aware, be safe during these uncertain times. We need to do this so we can get back to normal, so we can get back to high-fiving strangers on the street, so we can get back to having a hot dog and a beer at a football game, at a basketball game, just enjoying the atmosphere of live sports again. And to do other things like we once were able to do before this pandemic, like seeing friends and family, like going out to eat, or like just having to go to the store without wearing any masks. I know these have been difficult times for a lot of people, but just stay the course and push through, and we'll get through this together as a society. Well, that's all the time I got for today. Thank you for listening. Glad to be with you. Glad you can be with us. And thanks for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Before I go, please remember to subscribe and write a nice review. That really helps us out. Also, if you can follow us on the social media sites like Facebook, like Twitter, and like Instagram, that would be greatly appreciated. I'm Bryan Iglesia. Be well, stay safe, and we'll see you on the other side.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.